Good morning, guys. Hello. Welcome to my Compound Life. I'm your host, Jonathan. This is a channel where we build assets, we build habits, and of course, all of these great habits will help us to manage all of our assets that will lead us to building freedom. Essentially, that should be financial freedom, time freedom for you, me, and anyone else that watches my channel. So please remember to hit the like and hit subscribe. So this is yet another Bitcoin daily video. At the time of recording, we are on the 12th of January around 9:42 a.m. So this is Bitcoin Daily on my Compound Life. Welcome everyone, especially all the subscribers, old and new. Welcome. And of course, I'm currently 155 subscribers, which is going up tremendously quickly, I think. For my standard, for my benchmark, I think it's moving up. So that's good. So thank you, every one of you guys. Thanks for subscribing. Really proud of the community that we're building here. So thank you so much. If you're new here, I make daily Bitcoin video and other videos about my Compound Life journey. So yes, do remember to hit subscribe, right? Even if you don't like my video right now, just hit subscribe anyway and hit the like too. Thank you. So let's start with Bitcoin price action. Right now, at the time of recording, Bitcoin is at around 90,800 and it seems that it's dropping. Okay, and Bitcoin is trading around 90,500 to 91,000 USD in the past 24 hours. It went down a small, I think 1% to 1.5%, starting from about 91,500, hitting a high near 92,500. And low around 90,000, I think 90,800. So we are, however, still 28% away from the previous all-time high of around 126,000. Right? Yet another classic test of 90,000 support level. At least we're still above the 50 days moving average, which currently is around 89,600 USD, and Bitcoin is just above that. So that's all good so far. Before, it means that there's still kind of like a 10% chance, 15% chance that we're not heading into a 10 to 15% chance that we might head back higher, right? But to be completely honest, I don't think we're heading higher, right? So as a reminder, just a quick reminder, there is still a CME gap. The CME gap is at around 85,200 to 85,900. So we will have to go back down there to fill that, right? So I'm not saying that we will fill it by within the next 24 hours or within the week, but somehow CME gaps, they always get filled. So be cautious. Okay, so quick look at the fear and greed index right now. The time of recording, we are at around 26. So we had been fortunate enough to get back to the neutral level at around 41, but that was some time ago. That was like last week. Let me see. Yeah, that was around the 8s and the 9s, But so far this week, it does seem that we may hover around fear level more than back to the neutral zone. If you care, so far in the Bitcoin return for quarter one, let's look at just January. Nothing to represent much for quarter one yet because we're still in January. Middle of January. So far, Bitcoin is returning a positive 4.66%. I think that's pretty good in comparison to, we kind of reclaim or claw back some of the misses from 2025 for December. At least for December, it was negative 2.97% return for Bitcoin. And January so far, we are well above average as well as the median return, where average return is around 3.87% and 2.64% for the median return. And yeah, we seem to be well above that. But mind you, we are only halfway through of January, so let's not be overly bullish. But something to look forward to if we are still looking at this chart. I think February, at least for February, we should have, the median return should be around 12% overall for Bitcoin, or even average would be about 13.12%. Perhaps by the time we get into February, things might change a little bit. Well, I can't say bullish. The whole price action can turn even more positive, can turn even more, I don't know what's a better word, in between, just something slightly under bullish. But anyway, loss of words. That's fine. Let's move on. Yes, before we kind of get into the news section, right? I just want to remind you guys how bearish we are right now. Okay, so looking at the low to low comparison for every single cycle, right? So as a recap, Bitcoin, we do go over 4 years cycle, right? And we are kind of getting from 3 months from the peak. So this gray out area, I'm not sure whether you guys can see it. So this gray out area marks the top, the blow off top. Well, we obviously haven't got a blow off top like any other years, but at least it marks the Bitcoin all-time high. Okay, so the white line again represent the current cycle. Okay, so the white line, as you can see, we kind of got into a very, very bear market, around November the 3rd, and then we had such good, and that took about a year, a year worth of bear market, right? And then we had, multi-years of bull market for Bitcoin. Of course, it's volatile here and there, but it was multi-years of bull market that got us into a high price of 126,000 sometime before the 10th of October last year, right? So from the low, it was around 17,000. I think it was more than that. I'm not capturing fully. Around 15,000 the low. That bring us to about 126,000. So hit the like, guys, if you think Bitcoin performed really well, right, during this period of time. All right, because I certainly think so too, right? Let me know. Subscribe. Let me know in the comment section. Let me know in the comment section if you're new subscribers or if you actually have accumulated Bitcoin throughout this cycle and benefited from it, right? Let us know. You don't need to tell me how many Bitcoins you acquired. Just let me know to say that, hey, I've been through this cycle, Bitcoin is still one of the best investment I have made. Just drop in the comment section. Let us know that, right? Because I think there are plenty of bears out there. I just want to give you guys some hopium. I mean, this isn't even hopium, right? This is just historical chart to showcase, all of the multiple cycle, right? So we are in the fourth cycle. We are in this. This is the fourth Bitcoin cycle, and these are the performance, and we should really utilize this as kind of like a indicator to showcase to us when's the right time to enter. That would be this, right? And then when would be the right time to exit? That would be this, right? So this kind of brings me into want to discuss with you about, guys, right? This is very important. So in my compound life, we always talk about how you should have a hodl bag as well as a swing bag that you buy, right? So for your Bitcoin, you have a huge hodl bag that you try to hodl that forever and ever for your kids, for your families, for your loved ones, yada, yada, yada. You buy, you hodl, and never sell, right? Perhaps one day you can use that as collateral to get a loan, to pay off your mortgages, to pay off this, to pay off that, right? But your swing back, like me, especially, I'm in the UK, that there isn't a lot of places that we can use Bitcoin as collateral. So that's why every now and then I do have to sell off some of my Bitcoin for my swing back, where I do a little bit buy low, sell high. So what I want to tell you right now is it's an illustration that you should really utilize to build your hodl back or your swing back, right? But let's imagine you're building this for your hodl back, right? Let's imagine. Okay, so imagine 4 years ago, if you are in this cycle, right? If you are in this cycle, okay, and then you have been constantly buying Bitcoin, okay. Imagine if you kind of miss out all of this, buy the dip, right? Rather than buying the dip, because some friend came to me and say, "Hey, Jonathan, what's the best time to re-enter into Bitcoin?" I always say, you know what, you just wait and buy the dip. The next dip should be coming sometime in, November this year, right? But it's never a guaranteed, guys, because based on the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, I'm kind of following the rules, the rhythm that would indicate that 500 days before the next halving cycle, that would be, the time when Bitcoin is at its lowest. This would be the time to buy into Bitcoin. But this time around, we also need to consider that institutions are constantly buying Bitcoin. So that's why it makes it slightly more difficult for us for this cycle to actually know when will be the bottom. So we are somewhere here right now. Obviously, this is the top. And historically, for all other cycle, for the third cycle, the third cycle, this is the second cycle, the orange one, second cycle. The blue one represents the third cycle. Usually it indicates that after the cycle top, the all-time high, it takes about a year to get to the bottom, right? So this would be if you want to accumulate Bitcoin, this will be the time to accumulate. So accumulate here will essentially means you accumulate at these region, okay? So of course, I do also have a lot of friends that are more into passive investing, that, every time their salary comes out, they will set aside a portion goes into, buying ETF, right? Like not a Bitcoin ETF for now. They're buying something like the S&P 500. In the UK, the VUSA, VUSA. So rather than you consider buying your VUSA, right? So I want you guys to look through this. Maybe I'll just give you an illustration, right? Rather than you committing a huge amount, I'm sure many of you guys can probably afford $10. $10, guys. $10. Or £10. Okay, so come on, guys. I mean, £10. If you go out for lunch right now, a burger and chips and soft drinks would probably cost £10, right? So I'm sure any of you guys can afford £10 or 10 USD, right? So imagine if you so this is a Bitcoin DCA calculator. DCA stands for dollar cost average, or pound cost average if you are from the UK. So imagine if you repeat this from 4 years ago, right? So this would be like the low time for Bitcoin, by the way, right? So if you, so imagine if you kind of gone into Bitcoin on a daily basis, and then you essentially just put in £10 or 10,000 or $10, not 10,000. Imagine someone having 10,000 a day, right? Whew, that would be a dream come true for my compound life. But anyway, $10 or £10. So what you're seeing here is, okay, the green line represents the Bitcoin price. Okay, obviously, Bitcoin price has been quite high, and then it's going down into the bear market. So I think for our case, by the time for this cycle, the bear market would be around November, December period, 2026. And then it takes about a year worth of bear market before Bitcoin price continue to go up, right? So what you are seeing here, essentially on the blue line here, right? I'll drop the link for BitBo, by the way. It's just BitBo, Bitcoin DCA calculator. I'll drop a link in the description so you guys can follow it through at your own leisure. Okay, so the blue line here that you see, it's how much you have been DCAing in, right? $110. So that's essentially just $10 per day. So if you've been doing dollar cost average or pound cost average from the first day for the past 4 years, right? So towards that 4 years, you should somehow be at around 14,600, right? So that's $10 a day for a good 4 years. Okay, come on, guys, is that a lot of money? Okay, for some it is, right? That probably is a family holiday, a nice family holiday, or 2 family holidays, right? But essentially that means maybe you have 2 less of a cup of Starbucks coffee, okay? Or you choose to, have 3 packed lunches to work, as opposed to 5 days worth of eating out at work, to get this to this amount, right? And why am I emphasizing this is because essentially the Bitcoin CAGR that you can get will somehow help you to grow your capital in a much more shorter period of time, right? And to be honest, I felt this is something worth the sacrifice, okay? Because I've been there, I've done that, right? And now I can somehow be slightly free. Which, by the way, I mean, I've started my journey purely just doing properties, like property investment, being a landlord, rent them out, yada, yada, yada. But eventually, once I've gotten into Bitcoin, it's a very important asset because the CAGR is definitely much more attractive than owning properties, right? However, owning properties gives me certain flexibility, such as cash flow, right? Which I love. So I follow a little bit of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad's playbook. I just purely get on properties at the earlier age because, right? So this is something to bear in mind if you're young, which I know that there's a small portion of my viewers that are rather young, I think in their 20s and 30s, right? So I started properties pretty young too, right? I buy property and then we rent them out, and then and this allows good cash flows, right? Because the mortgage in the UK, they are much more lower than the rental income that we can collect, right? And over a period of time, certainly I've stopped investing in properties now. I have stopped buying new properties, right? I'm still investing in properties, still have to fix stuff, right? But I'm relying on Bitcoin now and there to help me to pay off more of this properties so that my income can become greater, right? So that's how I'm doing it. So I'm not purely just relying on Bitcoin. Just FYI. So I'm not saying that by doing this you're gonna be financially set. Certainly you're gonna have to acquire a lot more Bitcoin. Trust me, right? However, this is a starter, right? This is a starter to showcase to you the possibility of what's possible. Okay, so coming back to this chart, right? I want you guys to play a little bit on this to essentially say that, okay, so $10 a day, and it will be highly volatile asset, right? So if you invest in $10, right, this would be the period. The green highlight here will be how much you are making. So you are in profits. The red essentially indicate you are not actually making profits at all. Okay, so don't get frightened of this, right? Because Bitcoin, again, letting you guys know, it's a volatile beast, right? However, this volatility comes with good payout, right? So essentially, this period of time, if you constantly just do DCA, right, this period of time, right, so that would be sometime in April 2022 to about April 2023, right? And that's this period. January, March, April. No, I'm not capturing here. I can't see it from here. So essentially, this will be like the period of the bear market, right? So Bitcoin, it will always have 1 year's roughly worth of bear market, and then followed by 2.5 years, 3 years worth of bull market, as you can see, right? So essentially, this period is where if you want to lump sum in, right, this is where you should be doing your heavy lump sum, right? However, if you do kind of DCA in, this would, you are essentially waiving off the volatility here, right? So there will be a pain of approximately 1 year, right? Or smart money, what they do is they'll just try to DCA in during this period, right? So that's how I'm doing it, where I will buy Bitcoin 500 days before the next halving event, and I'll only do so for about 100 days and try to capture the low here as much as possible. And of course, every now and then when I do have more money, I'll buy here and there, but I'll get to a point where I'll just stop, right? Because, I will have too much exposure into Bitcoin, that I'll just decide that, you know what, that would be the time to, to exit and de-risk. Okay. So that's my buying rhythm, right? So for a lot of passive investors, maybe you don't want to monitor the chart. So that's why you kind of just do DCA, $10 a day. There will be a period of approximately 1 year, that your Bitcoin price will simply just suck, and you just need to bear in mind and to suck it in and move on, right? And there will be period where Bitcoin will increase so much that you'll be so happy checking on your apps every now and then. And there will be period where you want to make sure that, you actually exit for your swing back, as opposed to, exiting all in one go, because ultimately in my compound life, we want to compound good asset, and Bitcoin is one of them. Okay, so throughout the 4 years, $10 a day, 365 days a year, 4 years, you end up investing about 14,620. Is that a lot of money? Probably not. Probably it's a good family holiday for a 1 or 2 or even 3 family holidays, depending on where you're going, actually. And 4 years later, if you buy somewhere here, DCA $10 a day every single day, and by today's value, right, your return will be about 130% return. Okay, where can you get 130% return if you're simply just doing passive investing? Okay, I'm not talking about investing in growth stocks like the Nvidia and Google, Tesla, right? I'm talking about purely just passive investing. You're getting a return, matter of 4 years, 130%, right? So many of the passive investment that you do nowadays, like the ETF from Vanguard, right? They range around 7 to 10% per annum. And in order for them to do this, it essentially needs to take about 10 years, right? By getting into Bitcoin, you do so within 4 years, okay? And then that 14,620, if you decide that I don't want this anymore, I just want to cash out, right? 33,000, right? And then you can essentially take your family to a very, very lavish holiday for $10,000. You can go on 3 holidays afterwards, and then you still have about $3,000 in your pocket. Okay, so throughout this accumulation, right, you'll be accumulating around 0.37587 worth of Bitcoin. Okay, and ultimate goal, my compound life, right? We want you to compound in Bitcoin for the longer term, right? So that's why you have your HODL back, right? You may treat this as an indicator for your swing back. Imagine you want to put in 50,000, right? So this 14,000 becomes your swing back. You just HODL, you put in about 14,000, and then you take out 33,000 to pay off your lifestyle, right? Maybe you might have a few mortgages due. You want to pay that mortgages off. Maybe you just long for a good holiday for your family. Maybe you just want to do something nice for your local charity or local church. You just want to take some of this money and give them away, right? So these, okay, 14,000 to 33,000. It's not life-changing, okay? But it can be. It can be because what I want to show here, right? So we'll take 33,727. If you why can't I? 33727. Okay, just type in 33727. Okay. So imagine you take that money and just stop your DCA after that 4 years. Maybe you'd be like, you know what, I don't want to do DCA anymore. I just want to stop. I just want to let this compound by itself. Okay, so you ended with 33727 today, right? That's approximately, 0.371 Bitcoin. Guys, you need to get to 1 Bitcoin. Okay, so just get to 1 Bitcoin where possible. This is just for illustration only. Okay, so if you get into 0.371 Bitcoin, and then that equates to this amount, right? So if we take on Saylor's MicroStrategy's estimate of CAGR of around 30% per annum, okay, and then you stop depositing more into it, and 10 years down the line, right? 10 years down the line, this will be approximately $652,000 or pounds if you are accumulating £10 a day, right? So is this life changing? I somehow think it will make things slightly better. It's not going to be, you're not going to be like any other billionaires. So if the expectation is, you watch my channel and then you somehow become a billionaire, let me know, right? Please let me know so that we can be good friends, okay? But if the expectation is you want to, you are in an average job like me. I used to have an average job, and then you want to compound something that can permits you to have a much earlier retirement, gives you enough assets for you to decide on what you want to do in the future, as opposed to sticking around in the rat race. I think this sum of money in a matter of 4 years plus another 10 years, like 14, 15 years, will be life-changing, okay? It will allow you to, to do more in the future. It gives you some sort of a safety net that you might decide that, I don't want to continue to work at the age of 45, right? I want to enjoy life. I want to do something simpler, and I need some money to help me to do so, right? So this can be it, right? So this is what I just want to get my point across, because the friends that ask me, is this the right time to buy into Bitcoin? And somehow the only things I can let them know is you need to be in it for the long game, right? You're not here my teaching, in my compound life is I'm in this asset for the longer term. It's not something that I try to speculate and try to earn a quick few bucks and bugger off. But this kind of built my compound life, and this is how I can, enjoy and take on more passion project like YouTube. Take for instance. So yes, hit like, hit subscribe, and we'll be good friends. We'll build up this community together. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to news that moves Bitcoin price section. Bitcoin price is around 90,600. We're not gonna go far. Anyway, Bitcoin price section is done. Okay, so a few things. I think I'm not sure whether you guys seen this. Jerome Powell. I think today, when US market opened, it may rock the US market a little bit. Okay, so Jerome Powell, you either let me see where I am. Here you go. Jerome Powell, you either cut rates or you do times. Okay, so U.S. prosecutors are investigating Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell over his testimony last summer about the central bank's building renovation project, according to government official with knowledge of the matter. So Jerome Powell says DOJ, Department of Justice, by the way, is threatening the Fed with criminal charges for refusing to follow President Trump's interest rates demand. Okay, so you guys have to watch this. It's pretty funny. Okay, so let's start.
Good evening. On Friday, the Department of Justice served the Federal Reserve with grand jury subpoenas, threatening a criminal indictment related to my testimony before the Senate Banking Committee last June. That testimony concerned, in part, a multi-year project to renovate historic Federal Reserve office buildings. I have deep respect for the rule of law and for accountability in our democracy. No one, certainly not the chair of the Federal Reserve, is above the law. But this unprecedented action should be seen in the broader context of the administration's threats and ongoing pressure. This new threat is not about my testimony last June or about the renovation of the Federal Reserve buildings. It is not about Congress's oversight role. The Fed, through testimony and other public disclosures, made every effort to keep Congress informed about the renovation project. Those are pretexts. The threat of criminal charges is a consequence of the Federal Reserve setting interest rates based on our best assessment of what will serve the public, rather than following the preferences of the president. This is about whether the Fed will be able to continue to set interest rates based on evidence and economic conditions, or whether instead monetary policy will be directed by political pressure or intimidation. I have served at the Federal Reserve under 4 administrations, Republicans and Democrats alike. In every case, I have carried out my duties without political fear or favor, focused solely on our mandate of price stability and maximum employment. Public service sometimes requires standing firm in the face of threats. I will continue to do the job the Senate confirmed me to do, with integrity and a commitment to serving the American people. Thank you.
Okay, so this is pretty hilarious. It came out, so it's all on social media. I think as the prediction market really downplayed Powell's exit risk despite of Department of Justice probe, right? So according to prediction market now, I think, will Jerome Powell out as Fed chair by March, highly unlikely. It's, it will happen. So not the best news that I want to bring to you guys. So it seems market bet low chance that Fed chair Powell will be leaving anytime soon. And of course, this will affect rate cut, right? It seems Powell might stay on power and not continue to cut rates that are in favor to President Trump. And potentially that will impact all of us. I think there will be some impact market by the time market open today, and even in the longer term, there will be more impact for us. Okay, so man, I should have gone into gold or silver, guys. But anyway, it is what it is. Pretty hilarious. I like it when Powell doesn't have that glasses on him. Yeah, it does seem he will continue to be staying in power for a longer period of time. So we'll see. And of course, another news, institution corporate treasuries, they are buying big. The South Korean one, specifically, South Korean authorities seek 5% cap on corporate crypto investment. Okay, so a little bit of recap. Previously, they have banned on corporate crypto investment, and then now this has been unlocked. But of course, South Korean financial authority are proposing that a cap of 5% on the share of companies' equity capital that can be allocated to digital asset investments. So I think what they're afraid of will be everyone following, strategies playbook and start to acquire Bitcoin, and to a certain extent that will result in more difficult for them to manage, to control, because Bitcoin it's much more decentralized and open source, yada yada yada. So I think in a way it's a good and bad news, right? I think good news, at least they lifted the ban, right? And this will potentially unlock more liquidity. I'm hoping it will unlock more liquidity immediately into Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, it's a much more trusted cryptocurrency. Well, I don't see Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency, but I see this so much more differently. But anyway, in that language, Bitcoin will be deemed as the more credible one. So definitely this unlock will lead on to more liquidity and buying of Bitcoin and potentially Ethereum too. And of course, we know that the South Korean, they love XRP, right? I think they're also one of the biggest holder market by far, apart from the US, for XRP. So yeah, maybe XRP could go up too. But anyway, not calling out any coins or whatever. Of course, these aren't financial advice, so do your own research. And overall, 24 hours, Bitcoin absolutely not much happened, not much movement. Jerome Powell's speech earlier can definitely rock the market as soon as market open. So watch this space. And then that's it. That's it for today that I want to share. So hit the like, hit subscribe, guys. Let me know who you are, the new subscribers. I've actually got a few Australian subscribers. So I've got a few Australian So yes, I've got some few Australian subscribers, so that's good. So I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.